I'm going to die on a satellite whose name I can't even mouth, Commander J. Monroe thought as the scout skiff knifed through violet thunderheads. Controls fought him like live animals. Plates peeled from the hull. Alarms carved his cockpit in red light. Navigation dead. Life support sputtering. Ground racing up like a verdict. Impact vanished into blackout. He came back to the staccato of rain on fractured glass and the sour taste of burned circuitry. He forced the emergency hatch. Steam exhaled into the deluge. The skiff had plowed into a marsh at the edge of a forest that gleamed like polished steel. Trunks of mercury bark climbed toward a jade sky. Each breath he took tasted like pennies and rain. Through the curtain of weather, he saw it, a structure that didn't belong to wind or root. A cabin, 20 meters maybe, stitched from local timber with antennae and a heat exchanger jutting through the roof. Jay grabbed his emergency pack and ran. The door yielded under his shoulder. He stopped. Someone was inside. She stood by a workbench crowded with unfamiliar tools. Skin the color of young leaves, a dim inner glow like starlight through sea glass. Hair, long and burnished like hammered copper, cascaded over a gray jumpsuit marked with a slender sigil. Her eyes, amethyst irises ringed with sparks of gold, widened. Jay's hand twitched toward his sidearm, then stalled. She didn't reach for a weapon. She touched a small silver disc clipped to her collar, tapped it twice. A soft chime. I mean, no harm, a voice said in perfect trade over the chime's gentle hiss. Her lips moved, but the words came from the device. Her real voice beneath it was musical, bell clear, and to him, nonsense. I'm human, Jay said slowly, palms open. Skiff down. Need shelter. She studied him. A nod. She gestured. Rain collector, food fabricator, a sleeping alcove cut off by a hanging cloth. Sirrah, said the device after she touched her chest. Lyran Outreach Corps, stranded 6 cycles, J. Monroe. Terran Recon. He attempted a smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. Stranded 6 minutes. Her face didn't change much, but something eased behind her eyes. She pointed to the fabricator, then to him, mimed eating. Universal language, thanks, he said. A single crisp nod, and she returned to her bench, coaxing a long-range transmitter back from death. Jay shed his soaked jacket and hung it by the heater. Outside, storm fury. Inside, the hush of 2 strangers separated by grammar and glued together by necessity. He watched the way her hands respected delicate parts, the tiny ridge of focus between her brows, the way copper hair gathered light into its own orbit. She glanced up. He looked away fast, heat in his face. When he dared a second look, she was working again. Maybe, but the corner of her mouth had learned a small, private curve. By the 3rd day, Jay knew Sarah hummed when she worked. Not the translator, silent unless she chose. Her true voice, wordless patterns, wind braided with chimes. He didn't think she knew she did it. He found reasons to fix things within earshot. They built a rhythm. Mornings, transmitter repairs. She spoke the machine's soul. He knew human protocols and emergency bands. Progress measured in green lights. Afternoons, supplies. Mushrooms that didn't kill you. Water from a stream that sang under stones. Power cells scavenged from the twisted ribs of his skiff. Evenings, a fire, a fabricator bowl, a comfortable hush. Pass, Sarah said via translator, tilting her chin toward a jar of sun-dried fruit. Jay handed it over. Their fingers grazed. She didn't retreat immediately. Thank you, the device murmured. You're welcome. That was all. A 2-sentence symphony. Jay's hand buzzed where it had touched her. Isolation. Stress. Definitely not the way she'd grinned when he'd untangled a stubborn coupling. Definitely not the way her eyes kept stealing light from the fire. Tomorrow, Sarah said, jarring him from the feedback loop of his thoughts. We test the transmitter. If it holds, rescue arrives in 2 rotations. 2, Jay echoed. That's great, her head tilted. You do not sound pleased. I am. Liar, liar. Jay, she said without the device. His name in her own language sounded like a note struck on glass. She tapped the translator. You have been easy to be stranded with, he laughed. That's probably the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me. On your world, there is a saying of bright edges. Silver edges. Silver linings, he said. How do you... Outreach training. Many Terran idioms. A pause. You are my silver lining in this storm. The translator's neutral tone didn't dim the warmth in her gaze. You're mine too, he said, softer than he intended. Silence arrived, charged now, full of unsaid things. Sarah rose to feed the fire. Her hair slid forward like a waterfall. Jay's hand moved on instinct, tucking a copper ribbon behind her ear. She went still. Sorry, he blurted, retreating. She caught his hand before it fled. Her skin was cooler than human skin, smooth, alive. She studied him. Then, calmly, she clicked on the translator. On my world, she said, deliberate. Touching hair is significant. Significant how? It means you find the person, the device hunted for nuance. Worth knowing beyond duty. Oh. Jay's pulse thudded. I do. Find you worth knowing. Her smile this time was unarmored. I should rest, she said and didn't move. Yeah, me too. Neither did he. Finally, Sarah pressed his fingers once and slipped behind the curtain. Tomorrow we test in evening, she said through the device, mischief barely contained. Better atmospheric stability. Exactly what I was thinking, he said, grinning into the dark. He lay awake, tracing her sleeping breaths on the other side of a thin fabric, counting hours he wished were elastic. The translator hit the floor with a sharp metallic note. Jay looked up from the fabricator's menu. Sarah stood rigid, hand at an empty collar. They both froze. Then she bent to retrieve it. Firelight draped her like liquid metal. The clean line of spine, the cascade of copper hair, the smooth green lit faintly from within. Jay tried to be noble for half a heartbeat, then failed. Grace is a gravity, he thought, and he was in orbit. She straightened with the device in hand and caught him mid-crime. Her mouth curved, slow and knowing. She clipped the translator on with unhurried fingers, violet eyes tethered to his. Commander Monroe, she said, perhaps amused. You were staring. I was not. Beat. Okay, a little. She drifted closer. Jay's brain forgot stares and language. Humans have a phrase, she said. Caught. Red-handed. Red-faced, he managed. Accurate. She sat opposite, chin in her palm. Tell me, do humans always look even when they try not to? Only at beautiful things we think we shouldn't. The honesty outran the brakes. Sarah went still. You think I'm beautiful? I think, Jay said, raking a hand through rain-curled hair. I've been thinking that since I crashed through your... He gestured vaguely. Door. My door. She arched an eyebrow. This is an abandoned field station. Sure, the door you were already behind. Her laugh. The translator rendered it warm. Her true voice underneath was bells set free. You distract with semantics. Is it working? No, she leaned in. We do not hide attraction in my culture. We are direct. If someone cannot stop looking, we simply ask why. You want to know why I was staring? I want to know why you try so hard not to. He exhaled. Because you're outreach. Because I'm recon. Because we're not the same species. Because it's been days, not years. Because it complicates everything. Sarah's fingers skimmed the back of his hand, a whisper pattern that set off 1,000 small suns. We have a saying, complications are where life actually happens. You just made that up. Perhaps. A mischievous tilt. But it sounds wise. Your trouble, he said, turning his hand so their palms met. Me? You are the one who crashed into my quiet. Gravity invited me. A poor excuse. They sat with hands wrapped, translator purring occasionally when Sarah chose Terran words. The rescue, she said finally. It comes tomorrow, I know. Then perhaps... Tonight. She rose and drew him up with her. We stopped not looking. She pulled a slim slate from a shelf. Music spilled into the room, glassy harmonies that felt like dawn. She stepped into his arms. They swayed where firelight folded. "We will have to talk," Jay murmured into copper silk. "About what happens when," she set a finger to his lips. "Tomorrow. Tonight we dance." So they did, letting touch translate what language would only bruise. "Tell me something true," Sarah said later. They sat on the cramped porch as the satellite's twin suns slid toward the horizon and painted their world with molten green. Rescue, 8 hours away. Their small universe, 8 hours from collapsing into memory. Something true. Jay stared into the forest silver. "I volunteered for solo post because I'm bad at staying. Easier to break orbit than break hearts." The translator sighed softly. Sad, understandable. "Your turn." She tucked her legs under her, arms around knees. "I accepted this assignment because the man my family wanted me to pair with told me I was too much. Too curious. Too questioning. Too unwilling to bow." A quiet breath. "I wanted to prove my worth elsewhere." He was an idiot. Yes, she agreed. A conventional one. Jay shifted so their shoulders touched. "For what it's worth," he said, "you are exactly enough of everything." She turned. The distance between them vanished. "When we leave, I know, no, let me say." She tapped the translator on purpose. "When we leave, I return to Laren Consulate Authority. You return to Terran Command. Different sectors. Different chains. Different expectations. I know," he said again, softer. "But I won't pretend this was nothing." "It was not nothing," Sarah said. "It is not nothing." She stood abruptly and tugged him up with surprising strength. "Then 8 hours remain. I will not spend them grieving. What did you have in mind?" "You promised to teach me that Terran card game," she said, eyes bright. "I believe I was winning." "You were cheating." "Prove it." Inside, Jay shuffled the battered deck he'd rescued from a locker, while Sarah instructed the fabricator to spit out something she called celebration tonics. "Fair warning," Jay said, dealing. "If that's alcoholic, I'm terrible at remaining dignified around beautiful diplomats." "Who mentioned alcohol?" She pressed a cup of bright blue glow into his hand. "Mild stimulant. Enhances alertness and joy. Joy. Very much joy." She tapped her cup to his. "To storms with generous cargo." The drink tasted like starfruit and midnight. Warmth pooled behind Jay's ribs. The cards devolved into stories. "Describe Earth," Sarah said, curled into the floor cushions, translator idling between them. "Not the brief, yours." "It's chaos," Jay said. "Glorious and broken. Oceans that don't know when to stop. Mountains arrogant enough to poke clouds. Cities where a million different futures elbow each other at breakfast." He leaned back. "Rainy cafes. Old books that smell like dust and time. Kids laughing too loud in parks. You miss it. Pieces of it. I ran so far from it I forgot where I wanted to arrive." Sarah's fingers found his. "And now?" she asked. "Now I think I was running toward this," he said, letting her pull him until her back fit his chest, warmth under a thin blanket. "Toward being still with someone who makes stillness feel like motion." "I have not felt this," she confessed. "This easy. You look at me and do not see an asset. You see me. You're hard to miss," he murmured into copper, "and impossible not to look at." She laughed, and the sound traveled through both of them. "Smooth, Commander. Is it working?" "It is." She turned to face him. "But I do not need smooth. I need honest." "Honestly," he said, "I don't want you to leave." "Honestly," she breathed, "I don't want to go." They stayed like that while a silver moon climbed into a purple sky. "We should rest," Sarah said at last. "Or," Jay offered, "we could stay awake. Use every minute. For what? Talk, sit, maybe?" He traced her jaw with care. "Conduct a pilot study on whether Lyran-Terran relations improve with direct cultural exchange." "Cultural exchange?" Her eyes glinted. "That is the term? Unless you've got a better one." "I have several," she said, rising and pulling him up. "But they sound better without the translator." For the first time, she unclipped the device and set it aside. The proximity alarm sang them awake in a wash of gold from twin suns. Sarah was a tangle of copper across his chest under a thermal blanket. They had fallen asleep on the cushions, translator asleep on the table. "They are early," she said in her own language, and somehow he understood the music of it for what it meant. She reached for the device. When its mechanical voice returned, the spell thinned. 30 minutes, she said. What if we didn't? Jay asked. Jay, what if we asked for time? A week? A month? We could... He hurt himself and didn't care. We could make something here. Sarah sat, cupped his face. You don't mean that, don't I? You are a scout. You need skies. I am a diplomat. I carry promises. We cannot hide from our lives, even in a beautiful lie. This isn't paradise, he argued. It's a broken cabin on a forgotten moon. It became paradise, she said, because we knew it would end. That is why it is precious. He leaned his forehead against hers. I hate that you're right. I frequently am, she said gently. Remember it, they packed what little they owned. Jay's kit, Sarah's data papers, the now obedient transmitter. The cabin kept the rest, the quiet, the firelight conversations. Time folded like an origami bird. 2 ships descended to the clearing, Terran and Lyran glinting in cautious harmony. Commander Ray Harlow stepped from the Terran ramp, pressed uniform, practiced concern. Ambassador Thalen descended from the Lyran vessel, posture a lesson in protocol. Commander Monroe, Harlow said. Injuries? None, ma'am. Envoy Sarah. Thalen's translator was silk and ice. Unharmed? Unharmed, Ambassador, Sarah replied. Commander Monroe provided excellent shelter. Was there humor tucked in the corners of that line? Thalen's eyes flickered. Harlow's mouth almost moved. We'll need debriefs, Harlow said. Separately. Different chains. Of course, Jay said, stomach sinking. Halfway to the ships, Sarah stopped and turned, voice formal and pitched for both officers. Commander Monroe, thank you for your assistance during this emergency. Your conduct was exemplary. Envoy Sarah, Jay answered in the same register. The honor was mine. May our peoples continue such productive cooperation. Their eyes met. 100 unspoken pages in a single glance. Then Sarah did something no protocol manual covered. She unpinned her translator and pressed it into his palm, fingers lingering. A gift, she said through Thalen's device. So you remember how to listen. Jay's throat tightened. I shouldn't. You can. I insist. She stepped back, formality reassembled. Perhaps our paths will cross again. In this galaxy, Jay said. Anything's possible. She gave him a small private smile and turned away. Harlow appeared at Jay's elbow. Sir, we're wheels up. Yeah, he said and climbed aboard. Through the viewport, he watched the Lyran ship lift, a second heart leaving. Commander, Harlow said as they broke atmosphere, regulations require me to ask, any impropriety with the Lyran envoy? Jay thought of neat lines and necessary walls and the messy truth of being alive between them. No, ma'am, he said. Everything was entirely proper. Harlow watched him. You're a terrible liar. Yes, ma'am. For what it's worth, she added, almost smiling, their ambassador filed you a commendation. Exceptional cultural sensitivity and diplomatic instinct. Apparently you were memorable. Jay closed his hand around the translator. She was, too. 3 months later, dress blues strangled his ribs in the Terran diplomatic wing. Reassignment, cultural liaison, interstellar, no more solo hops along the dark. Amazing what one storm could redirect. Commander Monroe, an aide said, jogging up. The Lyran delegation has arrived. They requested you specifically for the tech exchange brief. They requested... Me? By name, sir. Jay's pulse stuttered into a sprint. He followed to Conference 7, fingers finding the outline of the translator in his pocket like a talisman. The door slid. Sarah stood by the table, copper hair braided in a different geometry, formal robes catching light. She was every inch the envoy until she saw him. Then the private smile arrived like sunrise. Commander Monroe, she said through a new translator tuned to a warmer timbre. What a pleasant surprise. Envoy Sarah. He was helpless against the grin. I heard you were in desperate need of cultural liaison support. These agreements are very complex, she said, eyes alive. I will require extensive consultation. I'm available for very extensive consultation. Excellent. Her voice danced. Perhaps we begin with a working dinner. Cross-cultural understanding improves over shared meals. Funny, Jay said. I've discovered exactly the same. The aide cleared her throat. Shall I, give you the room? Please, they said together. The door side shut. Quiet fell, the good kind that had always lived between them. Sarah crossed the space first. I did not merely request this assignment, she said, reaching up to touch his face with ceremonious care. I demanded it. I told them I would not negotiate with anyone else, that I had found the right liaison and would accept no substitute. You pulled rank to see me. I am a diplomat, she said, smiling against the gravity of it. I am very good at getting what I want. A beat. I want you. Jay gathered her in, the scent of her like unfamiliar flowers and home. Your ambassador must be thrilled. He already knew, Sarah said, laughing softly. He claims he has never seen me work with such enthusiastic cooperation, as I did during the storm. Subtle man. Not at all. She drew back just enough to meet his gaze, fearless and bright. I am done pretending. Done obeying rules about what should be possible. And the complications? She held his eyes. Complications are where life actually happens, remember? You absolutely invented that. Yes, she said. And it remains true. A careful kiss. I'm not promising easy. Distance. Different suns. Politics with teeth. I don't need easy, Jay said. I need you. Good answer, Commander. I've been rehearsing. They stood together as an alien twilight draped Earth's skyline outside the window. In the halls beyond, two governments prepared to trade technologies and signatures. Inside Conference 7, two storm-found people drafted a different kind of treaty. No seals, no stamps. Just two hearts learning how to translate across the space between stars.